With every passing day, conflict between Ukraine and Russia seems more and more likely. Just a few days ago, we'd estimated the number of Russian troops massing along the border with Ukraine to be around 20,000. 25,000 if you're including soldiers in Crimea already. It looks like that number was not quite high enough, because it looks like it's actually more like 50,000. Some people have been saying 100,000, but it looks like that is not the case. But regardless of the numbers, senior U.S. officials are saying it's not the number that matters most. They have enough to move in now, regardless, and in the right composition to be dangerous. What matters is the intent, and we don't have a clear sense of that. They have in place the capability, capacity, and readiness they would need should they choose to conduct further aggression. And in response to that, President Barack Obama has sort of given words of warning, I guess, to Russia, saying to de-escalate the situation, Russia should move back those troops and begin negotiations directly with the Ukrainian government as well as the international community. He has some other stuff that he has to say about Putin directly, but I don't know exactly what is backing up, I guess, the threat. You better do that or else what? I don't know at this point. But 50,000 is a lot for military exercises.
Yeah, so
the excuse that Russia's been giving, I'm alluding to.
Right. Normally, of course, I like negotiations. You know, the whole Dick Cheney, we don't talk to evil nonsense is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I've actually supported a decent amount of President Obama's foreign policy. Obviously not the drone strikes, but Libya, to a lot of liberals' chagrin. I thought Syria, you know, he threatened, but then he ultimately did the right thing, et cetera. The talk of negotiations when you got 50,000 guys at the border, it's true, of course you should do negotiations, but it seemed like a kind of a weak response. Not that there's a stronger response. What are we going to do? Like, okay, oh yeah, we'll put 50,000 American troops on the Ukraine. We're not going to do that, right? I don't know, but it sounded weak to me. And I'm now beginning to believe that Putin is starting to think that he can do whatever the hell he wants. And I'm like, I would have thought he's not going to go into Ukraine. That's crazy. I get Crimea. Maybe another Russian enclave in another country, but to go further into Ukraine sounds like madness. If he goes further into Ukraine, that's it. We've got a massive historic issue on our hands.
Do we have a map? Like, where are these troops amassed in relation to Crimea?
I believe northeast of Crimea, along the eastern border of Ukraine.
So so you forgive my ignorance, but I'm sure it's shared. So Russia's border with the Ukraine is much broader than just Crimea.
Yeah, of course. In fact, we're referring to President Obama is to Russian troops that are legitimately inside Russia, and he says, so I get that, and that's not a problem, that's not our business, right? So he's referring to the troops that are inside Russia, not inside Crimea, because we don't acknowledge Crimea as Russian territory. So if I was Don Rumsfeld, I'd say, well, they're a little to the east, west, north, and south of Ukraine.
But so they're amassing troops on a border to go into non-Crimea Ukraine.
Yes,
that's right.
Exactly.
Or not to go in, but
yeah. So we gave you a little bit of early information about sort of the basic strength of the Ukrainian military and the Russian military. So you've got around 50,000 troops and 5,000 Russian troops in Crimea. The Ukraine has about 180,000 active service members.
But they only have 6,000 that have all the equipment they need to fight.
Is that right?
6,000.
I hadn't read that number.
Yeah, that doesn't sound
What
good.
do the other 174,000 have?
Not
Like
do stuff to fight.
Like Polish army stuff?
No, not Polish army stuff, but you figure, okay, Russia's basically, Putin's controlled the Ukrainian military now, indirectly at least, for the last 20 years. So he's put all the officers in charge of everything. So not only do you have to worry, okay, that 100,000 don't have the equipment, but how many of those 100,000 are actually loyal to the Ukraine at all, and how many are there to just F stuff up?
Let me ask Wes this question, because we talked about this in the morning meeting, John. If you're, from Russia's point of view, and this is from a way to look at it where this is reasonable given the current situation on the ground, if you're Russia and you've just taken what you are claiming to be yours by birthright and sort of just a mistake of weird foreign policy had you give up Crimea in the first place, you've retaken Crimea. Ukraine objects to that, obviously. They're militarized. So what you would do is be like, okay, and just so you know, here's our giant show of strength to let you know we took Crimea, and we're keeping Crimea, and there's no discussing this, and there's no fighting about this.
Oh, it's not just about Crimea, dude.
Okay, well, that's the question.
No, this is, I mean, look, first of all, the guy's a KGB spy master. That's who he is. So he's looking at the world through that geopolitical prism. And it's going to start with the Crimea, and then you're going to go to Transnistria. There's a very good chance. I mean, look, his ultimate goal is to break apart the Western Alliance. The surest way to do that is to begin messing with Estonia. You've got, I don't know, what, 20, 30% of the population there is Russian. They're a NATO member. The Russians there are actually discriminated against by the government, so he's got more of a case to go in there than he did initially in Crimea. And is America going to fight for Estonia? And if America doesn't fight for Estonia, then that's it for NATO.
So that gets to the two most important questions. And Wes is our military expert, so it's a good day to have him on. Number one, what's your guess here? Is it a show of strength, or does he intend to cross the border into Ukraine?
My guess is he's going to cross the border into Ukraine.
Jeez.
Because he's pre-positioned fuel and supplies, and he's got this window before the next group of draftee troops come in, I think in a couple months, where, you know, I guess the Russians, they owe a year. So their best trained guys, they're ready right now. Another 6 months, they won't be the best trained guys. And he pulled out kind of the unit in Moscow that's in charge of making sure that, you know, the huddled masses don't rise up against them. That unit's been deployed out of Moscow to the Ukrainian border.
If he goes into Estonia, which I agree with you, I'm most worried about that. He has a decent case to make. Like before he went into Crimea, people were like, "That's crazy." Of course not. The minute he went into Crimea, people were like, "Oh yeah, Crimea is Russian. It's no big deal," right? And in Estonia, there is an enclave that is mainly Russian, ethnic, and discriminated upon. It's a perfect place for him to take.
Let's be realistic about why these groups of ethnic Russians are discriminated against. Because in the mid to late 1940s, they took all the native inhabitants and they murdered them all, and they replaced them with Russians in strategic places where, if these countries ever became independent, they would never be independent.
Right. Yeah. No. They have good reason to be aggrieved with the Russians historically. So the second question is, if they go cross the border into Estonia, do you think NATO says, "Oh hell no, man, that's a NATO country. You just crossed the red line. That's it. We are engaged. The battle is joined." Or do we say, "Nah, fuck it. It's Estonia"?
Oh, you have to. You got to fight for Estonia. If you don't, that's it. And then piece by piece, you'll see Europe taken apart in the next 20 years.
Every other secondary or tertiary member of NATO is like, well, this was
I
totally
guess this
bogus.
was a joke.
This was a joke, right?
Right. No. Yeah, I agree. So if he goes further into Ukraine, I already think we're at like, this guy is setting up an empire. We're gonna have to confront him. Okay.
You're gonna have to confront him eventually.
Look,
Confront him out? Like you have to fight him?
No, you don't. There's all kinds of diplomatic stuff you can do on the side. Like
They've been having those phone calls.
you say that, but phone calls can do a lot. I mean, okay, because the Kosovo situation gets brought up in this a lot. The reason that we got the outcome we did in Kosovo was because we made a phone call to the Ukraine and Poland to block Russian troop transports from coming through their airspace. Or were we done 80 some odd days of bombing just to give it to the Russians?
President Obama kind of echoed a lot of what you were saying. He says there's a strong sense of Russian nationalism and a sense that somehow the West has taken advantage of Russia in the past, and that he, meaning Putin, wants to in some fashion reverse that or make up for that.
I got to say, let me get on the Russian thing a little bit, because I grew up in the Cold War in Germany. I was in the service, and the fundamental difference between us and the Russians is not one of philosophy or anything else. It comes around the end of World War II, because the Russians are the kind of people who round up groups and they put them in camps and they kill men, women, and children. It's called root to branch. You kill all your threats. Growing up in Germany at that time, we were told as kids, if war ever happens, everyone's got to get to France as quickly as they can, because the Russians had orders to round up all the families and kill the wives and the children. And you're like, oh, dude, that's Cold War propaganda. Well, when Dad was head of NATO and they opened up the Stasi files, that was exactly the plan, because they do it over and over and over again every 30 or 40 or 50 years to whichever country they're occupying. And to act like, no, they're just insecure. Okay, great, the Russians are insecure. If you went to college in the 70s or 80s, all you heard was, the Cold War is all America's fault because we don't understand Russian insecurity. Russian security is based on their brutality to everybody that lives around them, and all the little countries that have put up with hundreds of years of this. I mean, look, the whole reason that we are even in the United States is because the Russians decided to trample all over the Jews in the 19th century in Eastern Europe. I mean, they create these problems over and over and over again. And so if you're Pole or you're from the Baltics or Ukrainian, you think, This is our chance. Let's get away from these people.
So a couple of quick things about that. First, you might say, well, okay, Wes, that's Stasi files and that's old school. So they're not necessarily in modern day, except for the fact that, as you pointed out, Putin was a KGB spy master. That's what the world he grew up in.
But yes, he's a KGB spy. But not everybody there who has made 25 years worth of cash off a vaguely capitalist system and an opened up society is going to be delighted with a return to that way. It can't be as ingrained, right?
No. So that's it right there, and that's what's really interesting. Whether the interconnected of our financial systems and our markets, that phenomenon has grown to such a point that it overwhelms the old imperialism and aggression is the question at hand. Because hold on.
Set it up so it can't.
So let's. I hear you on that, and you're going to give that point in a second. So the idea is, what can we do, right? If he goes into Ukraine, Estonia, et cetera, other than military, although if he went into Estonia, we'd have to respond militarily. But what we could do is just shut down all the trade and say, that's it, you're done. We don't even want your energy. We'll buy more expensive energy from elsewhere for Europe, et cetera, and just clamp down on them to the point where the Russian oligarchs would be like, whoa, Vladimir, what are you doing? We just lost several $1 billion apiece, right? And so we can't have this. That's the consequence of our interconnected financial world. Now, is Russia going to stop with the imperialism? No, he's going to test it. Because it's not just that he's former KGB. He already took a part of Georgia. He already took a part of Ukraine. And historically, guys who take that kind of land don't settle. I'd be like, great. I just got 2 great pieces of land that I didn't have before. I'm done. Right. Okay, I don't want to get greedy. But guys like that are greedy by nature. That's why they took it in the first place. He will do something else. And when he does, the military will run into the oligarchy.
Work in his interests, because the sanctions are going to hurt the other potential levers of power in Russia, which is the billionaires. If you strip them of their money, they're really not much of a threat. Europe has to buy the oil and gas anyway. So he can determine who gets the money off it, rather than somebody who set themselves up 5 to 10 years earlier.
North American, non-European sources of trade, China and things like that.
Yeah, so that's why China will be critical. Which side is China going to be on? And in fact, in the Crimea incursion, China abstained in the vote in the United Nations in the Security Council. And that's really important because China normally backs Russia in those votes. The reason they abstained is that they didn't like the idea of someone coming in and saying, well, that's ethnically X, Y, or Z, so we'll just take it again. China holds a lot of territory that's ethnically X, Y, or Z, and they don't want people coming into their country.
But they also want territories that are filled with X, Y, and Z of their own. So it could be a...
And they have huge economic interests with the United States, as well as Russia, obviously. So that's why we got the abstention.
If you're China, though, are you going to hitch your ride to Russia? Is that what you're going to hitch it to? A nation where the average life expectancy of a man is like 50? That your population is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking every year because mainly alcoholism? I mean, who are you going to go with?
This is all super interesting, but John, what is the latest with the plane?